Well, at the start of Georgia's football for 2022, Kirby Smart got a chance to rant about player rankings. And I love how he does this because he says you guys a lot. There wasn't one person in that room the other day that ranks football players that are coming out of high school. But anyway, he did not take, he still took an opportunity to talk about this. And one of the things he said in here was very important. He said, a lot of the accolades that come with the players, they drop them at the door, and they go sweating and they go to work. They so we're not here to live off high rankings and what people said about them, because there's a lot of good football players out there that you guys didn't rank high or did have high. I mean, sometimes he's anyway. So it goes both ways. We will need those guys to be core special teams players. We will need those guys to be ready to play in case injuries, targetings, whatever that may be there. But we've got to get them ready. How we prepare in this training camp, and I'm excited about all those guys. The question, I actually can't remember who asked the question, was about the DBs that are coming in that Georgia is going to need to play on special teams. Now, I don't know if these guys are going to start. Increasingly in this program, Georgia is younger players are having a harder and harder time coming in and starting. Um, I cannot think of a freshman that I feel like would come in and start, a true freshman that would come in and start. Think about Keely Ringo's first year at Georgia. He was injured a lot. You've got guys like Chris Smith and William Poole who are coming back as starters in the secondary. Same thing. Um, on the defensive line, you've got an older bunch there. You see guys like Williams, Jones, who are considered five-star prospects. Sure, they'll play. I don't know that they're just going to come in and get you know become extremely good players immediately. I did think Jalen Carter would come in and play early. He did. He's going to be a top, I don't know, 15 guy in the NFL draft. Some guys, I guess it's relatively obvious, but even in the case of some of those guys, Darnell Washington, for example, the path to playing quickly at Georgia has become extremely difficult because there's so many guys in the way. There are players who are developing, who may develop right past your potential if you don't get the job done in developing too. Uh, the part that he's right about is we're not going to live off high rankings and what people said about them, because there's a lot of good football players out there that people didn't rank high. The you guys thing is something that Kirby does a lot. I mean, I guess he reads a lot of these articles, or reads what the rankings are. Um, the rankings are only a barometer for potential of players that get seen a lot, have uh, the capability to be seen a lot. It is just a barometer. I have never ranked a player in my entire life. That doesn't mean I can't go out and say, "Oh, I watched Jacob Eason and he could be really good," or he could be, up and down, which is what I said the whole time. I mean, I am not a football expert. Kirby is, and that's why he should know that the higher player that you recruit, the more likely you are to win, which is the reason why they attack the high ranked players. Everybody knows this. That doesn't mean there aren't outliers. That doesn't mean there's not Ben Jones, David Andrews, Christopher Smith, A.D. Mitchell, Clint Bowling, whatever. Stetson Bennett is probably the best example. These people exist. There is no one way to correctly diagnose 125 football players that make up the roster at Georgia. There's any number of ways of being successful as an individual. It is Kirby's job, and he's shown how successful he is at it over time, and Nick Saban's job, etc., to take the ingredients, the salt, the pepper, the paprika, the cayenne, the ribeyes or the chicken, and make it into a meal that is outstanding. That takes a lot of time, and that's the part at which we're in right here. But no, you're not going to live on high rankings. I mean, of players or just Georgia. I'll tell you, at the beginning of when he said that, I knew what he was talking about. There were the players, but could transfix that to, Georgia's probably going to be ranked number 3 coming into this season. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, just like it won't mean anything for Alabama to be ranked number 1. It's just a barometer at that moment of who the media or the coaches feels like is ranked, and those teams in those cases would deserve that ranking. I think they're justified. Make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION. The link is down below. When you pick up DAWGSTRUCTION today, you get our 2022 preview included for free. You can also get this deal at Red Zone, although I went by Red Zone today and they are running low on books. So if you're in Athens, go get the last ones or go shopping, man. They had a lot of new stuff in there today. So go check that out. They're on Clayton downtown. The links are down below. If you just want the 2022 preview, the 22 preview for the season, you can pick that up as well. But my favorite player, or whatever you want to call it, or the greatest example of development, greatest is probably an extreme word, but a very good example of development is Christopher Smith, and I think William Poole is too. They were both at Hapeville. Jermaine Burton was there at the time as well. We shot portraits of all 3 of those guys. I think it was all on the same day. I'm certain it was in the same day. So those 3 guys were all there at the same time. And, I think it would be understandable if you gave up on William Poole. But the truth is that this is a exceedingly common thing now in our world, which is that in the world of college football, in that we are so ready to push guys off the island when they do not immediately perform, or whatever you want to call it, in their first year or two. Keep in mind that in William Poole's first couple of years, the people in the secondary included Eric Stokes, Lewis Seen, etc. Okay, that was not Richard LeCount. That was not an easy spot to fight your way onto the field. So what's happening while everybody is excited, and I'm not picking on Bear Alexander, his just name just comes there is. I saw him the other day. When everyone's thinking about Bear Alexander or whatever, all of a sudden you've got, or when everyone's thinking about Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Trayvon, well, I mean, Zion Logue can't just hang out for 3 years or 2 years. It's going to be go time for him when it's go time for him, and you don't ever know when that's going to be. As Kirby points out, we need those guys to be ready to play in case of injuries, targetings, or whatever there may be. Now, I mean, in the past, that was COVID. In the past, that's been injuries, whatever. I mean, you don't ever know. Stetson Bennett was ready. I mean, and you can make the case that JT was ready in late 2020. Okay, so you have to be ready for your moment, and the only way to do that is to do what you're supposed to do in the time leading up to that moment. The older I get, the more I know and understand that you will succeed if you're ready to succeed. You will succeed if you do the little things every single day, the tedious, what seems like stupidity that you have to accomplish in order to get things right. And when you do that every day, consistently, whether you're in a good mood or bad, the little stuff will add up. And what you've seen at Alabama and Georgia is that the little stuff has added up to both those teams playing for and winning national championships in the last 2 years. Alabama, the little stuff has added up more for them, okay, because they twice played for the national championship in that time. Is the little stuff catching up to Clemson? We're going to see this fall. Has Texas A&M not done enough little stuff yet to get it right? I mean, everybody the reverse of what Kirby's saying is what's happening at Texas A&M, which is this phenomenon that these young, extremely skilled guys are going to Fab Five their way to an SEC West championship. That's harder to do in football. But when Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, etc., come onto your team in basketball, there's only 5 guys that play on the floor. And we're not talking about 22 people plus skill players in special teams. It's a little bit different conversation in basketball. You can get there real quick in basketball. You can turn things around extremely fast, but you still have to do the little things. And this right now is about doing all the little stuff right and failing and correcting the failures and learning from the failures. Uh, I was talking with a letterman yesterday, a former starter at Georgia and all this stuff, and we talked about how different things are now than when we were in college and we were playing sports. And it is vastly different. There's nutrition now. There's GPS for running and all these. I mean, we had to do, our our running. Oh God, these things called pro sets, and our clock was the gym clock, and that was it. It was predicated on if coach would hold the clock for a second or two, because our big guys, of which I was one, maybe we weren't quite running as fast that day or whatever. Those days are gone. I mean, you got a GPS on you. You've got the capability of playing in the indoor facility if it's 98 outside and they're just going to burn through guys. There are no more, Kirby talked about this, there are no more two-a-days. That's gone. And maybe that's good, you know, for the health of these young guys. Maybe it is. And maybe they're not tougher physically. Well, maybe they're playing longer. We don't know. But, well, we do know. Well, it does seem like they are playing longer. Um, but we're not going to live off high rankings. Better not. Because no one cares what you did last year. Whether you were a 5-star prospect or Nolan Smith coming back or Stetson Bennett winning the national championship as a starting quarterback. No one cares about that. And if you lose to Oregon, no one's going to care about what you did in 2021.